Hey, so I don't know who this is for, but this is certainly a transmission for someone, not just like yesterday where I was like, you know, recalling my randonauting experiences and stuff. This is something that somebody who is going to watch this video needs to hear. I don't know why, and for a lot of people watching this isn't probably going to be something new, but I'm just going to bring this up again. If you're at a really rough point in your life and you're looking back on everything and you're thinking about how hard everything has been, and especially if you're looking back on things that happened to you when you were a little kid, even like serious trauma, just really big, deep, dark things that have shaped your whole life, and you're still, you're still working it out. I think that this can be difficult at multiple different ages. Like if you are thinking about this stuff in your 20s and 30s, I think it's its own unique kind of pain. But when you're looking at it in your 50s or 60s or 70s, I would imagine, I'm in my 40s, so I can't speak to those directly, but I would imagine that, it takes on a whole different tone when you're looking at how big like wounds and things that happened to you that, didn't have to happen to you and stuff like that have shaped your life and the things they've robbed you of specifically. I think that most people with stuff like that eventually stop and look back and say, wow, this experience robbed me of so much, and I was an innocent in it. I didn't, do anything to invite it. It just kind of happened to me and shaped my whole life. It was just sort of a part of the whole coding of the system that was going to operate for the rest of my life. What I wanted to say about this is, again, because it can be, I think, easy to lose sight of this, consider that you actually, and I'm not saying you definitely did this, but consider the perspective that perhaps you chose this. Consider the perspective that in your highest, most complete, whole, enlightened state, non-physical state, that you chose to come into this experience, and knowing from that whole state that you would return to being whole again, and knowing that you were going to have to come into this life and endure this experience or these experiences, in order to create a setup that you would then have to learn how to emotionally navigate and undo. Consider that was the whole point of that. Because I think it adds a dimension, it adds a dimension to what you're experiencing that I want to say takes the edge off, but that's not strong enough. I think when you look at the things that you've gone through and the difficulty that you have had with learning how to exist within this framework that was created by it, I think when you, I think when you're thinking about things that you believe you might have had that you didn't have because of these experiences, that it's helpful to look at it as a much, much larger gift. I don't know if I just said that all correctly. Like, it doesn't just take the edge off, it adds a dimension of meaning to it that needs to be there. Because I think it is there. I think when you step back and look at it that way, at least for me, when I step back and whatever like life experience I'm right in the middle of dealing with or whatever, if I step back and say, this whole experience is something I set up for myself purposely. There's a reason for this. Then I can kind of feel the truth of that, because nobody knows the answers to these things. Like, we don't have the answers for whether or not what I just said is true. All you have to go on is whether or not, for me anyway, like the sensation in my body is like resonating with the thought that I'm having. So when I think about stuff like that in those terms, there's an inner resonance. There's a sigh of relief. There's, the idea that I'm presenting myself with that there is no proof for is sort of rings true with whatever, inner feeling tool actually is present. And, I've been thinking about my own life a lot lately. I've been thinking about my own childhood, my own traumas and stuff. And I've been thinking about how that has shaped my adult life so far. And, I don't know why, but, my mind just kind of went all over the place. Like, why would certain people not have, why would certain people come and not have those things? Or, why would certain people come and experience these horrible things that really, really, I don't mean this insultingly, but handicap them, like really make it difficult or impossible, nearly impossible, or actually impossible for parts of their life where they're not more illuminated about how to exit, certain mental states. Just these experiences that deprive people of so much life and happiness and make it so out of reach for them to have the experiences that they really want, that everybody wants, that they're like human experiences that are just naturally desired. And I really think this is the explanation that makes sense. And I think it's beneficial to look at it that way, even if just for a minute, even if just like for a second today. Consider the idea that you chose this, not that you, the human, did. So whatever the thing is that you experienced that was so traumatic in the past, you as the human, you didn't. That's why it's so insulting when you hear, cheapened explanations for spiritual concepts. That's why it's so insulting when people just sort of like take the most surface possible meaning of these ideas and say, oh no, it was something you were thinking about when you were 4, that's not true. Like, that that's not how the things that happened were created. We don't know exactly how they were created, but I think it's safe to say, or at least consider the idea that your soul in its most highest and complete and whole state said, I'm going to experience this life and I'm going to dive into this really hard life because I know that I'm going to be fine. I'm in my whole complete state now. I know that after this life, I will return to that state. I'm going to go into this life because experiencing this thing, while it will be horrible to experience the actual event, it's going to force me to learn skills that I don't currently have. It's going to force me to have understanding I don't have. It's going to force me to, it's going to put me in this situation where the challenge in this life is learning how to emotionally navigate out of the damage that did. So it's going to be hard, but I'm choosing to do it. So I think this is very difficult because often people confuse the idea that they chose something with blaming themselves for something, or those two things go hand in hand. So, I think it's tricky to navigate without doing that, and you must not blame yourself. That's not any part of this. I think it really helps to look at your life and the way it got set up for you as a challenge that you, from a different, higher level of yourself, chose. And the challenge for you is the unraveling of it. It's what the important part of this experience is for you is the part where you are learning how to, heal from it, or undo the idea. You become the process of becoming aware of, how your self image and self perception distorted because of it, and righting that wrong. I think it's really the separation. Like, when you've spent your life thinking that you're a human here and you're supposed to be having, your life here is to go through school and get a job and get married and have kids and go on vacation and get material objects and get enough money so that you can just, live an old person rock star lifestyle through your entire retirement and then die. Like, if that's kind of, I feel like that's sort of where most people start. That is certainly where I was coming from until I was maybe 25 or something, like maybe older even. I think it's a big gulf between that and starting to look at your life as those things are utterly and completely meaningless and unimportant for the most part, other than maybe the love you gave or the happiness you felt. Like, that's not what this is at all. This is it's a place where these things can be set up and experienced. These emotional interchanges, the rewriting of certain mental things. That's at the heart of everything here. And that is the actual point. Like, this spiritual experience is the actual purpose of this place for most people, or many people. Maybe some people just come here to have a playground. I don't know, obviously. But like, if you're not one of those people, I think it's going to be pretty obvious to you. And I think it's valuable to try to have this little perspective shift. I think it empowers you, and I think it also maybe just a little bit can make you grateful for the experiences that you've had, even if they're awful. There's a certain appreciation that I have for the fact that this even exists, and for what's possible here. If you completely remembered already, like, imagine yourself as that whole, complete, perfect spirit that decided you were going to come here and come into this form and have this experience. I think a big part of what makes all of this change possible is that you don't remember that you're that thing. You're not in the experience of being that whole and perfect other self. That's like the illusion that allows all of this experience to happen, and the experience must be important, or I don't think any of this would exist. The experience of rewriting and learning to navigate and all that stuff. I don't know if anything I just said makes sense, but when I was on my way, I always drive from my house about 20 minutes away to a place that's kind of close to my office, but there are a few specific places I like to park and make videos. And on the way over here, I just kind of like came to, and I was talking out loud. And I was talking about this. I don't even remember my thought process, but I was literally saying the things I'm saying in this video. And I just sort of became aware in the moment that I was saying this, that this is what I was I'm getting better at recognizing this. I'm getting better at recognizing when something is like meant to be shared and isn't just like me talking about something. Because in the past I've had that experience, but then I've opened my phone and talked about something else. But I just realized, like, I was talking about this concept almost unconsciously to myself. I don't know what the hell that is, but I'm at least not freaked out by the idea that something or my higher self or God or something is trying to communicate through me to somebody out there, since, as we've seen, I'm completely unwilling to make a total ass of myself and make a video every day, even if it makes no coherent sense to me. And since this year I'm making a video on this channel every single day, I'm not even not posting the stuff that I don't think is that good. I'm just like, well, this is what I got today, so it's going up. But yeah, this was definitely for somebody, and I hope that message landed in the right way for whoever was supposed to see it. Like, I think it's easy to look at your life and be like, wow, this was just a tragic life. What the hell? Look at all this tragedy that happened to me, or look at all this abuse that happened to me, or whatever. I've talked on here a little bit about like abuse that happened in my life, and it did suck, and it has had a negative impact on me, but there is abuse so much worse than anything I've ever experienced. And I'm well aware of that. And for people that stuff's happened to, I really, I just put myself in that situation, compare it to my own, and, magnify whatever I'm feeling by like 100 times. I could, I feel like I would have moments where I was just saying, man, what the hell? This was like a wasted life. Like, I had so much potential, but then this thing had to happen. Why? And I did my best, but I couldn't really make good with it before, and man, this just sucks. And why did this have to happen to me? And, why? Why me? Why me? And I think that's a really good time to say, hey, man, wake up, like, I chose this for myself, not from this human standpoint. Of course, no human would ever choose to experience the things that I experienced. But, in my other form, in my whole form, I knew that it would be okay and that this experience wouldn't damage my soul and that I would come back to being whole again. And I knew that I was choosing to experience that. More like I was going to accept that I had to experience this negative thing in order to set me up for all of this other stuff that I could do then, all these ways that I could expand, and all these other ways that I would then learn to navigate, So I guess the bottom line is, consider that you chose this life because what your soul wanted was to learn to navigate and to learn to let go of things. And you could see how a soul might want to learn that. So anyway, I hope that helped the person it was supposed to help, or people it was supposed to help. Have a great day.